all that hard work that you did in the South. Thank you, whoever remembered to record that. Thank you. So we're gathering the fruits of all that labor. It's also the time of reckoning. It's a time of looking back and seeing which crops did not work, which ones failed, which projects failed. The time of going back and needing to clean up some things that we may have done and clean up some relationships. And it's that west, that autumn energy holds both that celebration of the harvest and the gratitude for all that we have gained, and also the grief of the loss as things start to die. As if you're in the northern hemisphere, that's what's happening. All these leaves are dropping off and the plants are dying back. So that it holds that beautiful tenderness of both the grief and the gratitude. And so that's what as we move into the West, and as we think about the archetypes that we're working with, the core one here is the matriarch, and on either side of the matriarch we have the Amazon and then the priestess, which I'm going to talk about a little later.
So then we move around the wheel to the north, to winter, to the dark moon, a place of wisdom, a place of crone with sorceress and dark mother sitting on either side. It's a late in life, night hours, a time to slow down and turn inward, just as nature does. A time of looking over the course of nature's cycles and embodying the wisdom of the path that's already been traveled. A place of grandmother and grandfather and ancestors. A place of bear signifying hibernation and eagle signifying the insight and the overview perspective that one gets late in life. A place of sharing your wisdom and giving back to community. A place of deep surrender to life cycles, such that on the turn of the wheel will show up again and again. And in deepening one's relationships to the directions and the seasons, we return to the landscape and we remember in our bones what it's like to be connected to these natural rhythms for healing and for inspiration.
Thank you, Bea. So we're tracking this seasonal wheel as a year. Like, think of this as a whole solar cycle. But you can also think of it in terms of a day. The spring is the dawn, and you move into midday, and then into sunset, and into midnight. We can also think of it as a month, the whole cycle of one lunar cycle. And in this way, as we start talking about the archetypes, we're thinking of it as an entire lifetime, and that we're born somewhere up here in the Northeast, and we travel through our childhood in the East and our adolescence, and move into the fullness of our womanhood in the South, and that full moon, and then and gradually through this matriarch, and as we go all the way around through crone and north, through death, and then into rebirth. And in this particular cosmology, you'll see obviously it's a circle, it's a cycle. It's not thought of as a linear progression life, but it's sort of a cycle of birth and death and rebirth. And so that's why it's presented this way. So if we take this seasonal look at life, we can move on and look at the 4 core cardinal archetypes that overlay this wheel, and then we're going to break it down even further into the 13 archetypes. But Callie, would you like to start us off again in the East?
Yeah, so backing up into the North for just a moment, just to name the place of deep surrender, and that place of letting go so fully that spring simply shows up. This place that in order for something to be born, often there's this shedding of something and something that needs to die. And so when we think about our lives, when we come into this world, we enter this place of, we can talk about the 4 cardinal archetypes, and then on either side of each of those 4 cardinal archetypes, we have 2, one on either side. And so for the maiden, we have the daughter, and then we have the blood sister. And so as we come into life, in this place of daughter, it's it's likely what many of you are thinking, this place of innocence, of purity. And really, as we move into Maiden is so much about honoring our menses and these blood rites that many of us were not able to honor. Hopefully some of us were. I know often the story when I sit with women is that they haven't been able to honor that first menses and really step into their womanhood in that place. So with Maiden, you're really, when you think of, your budding sexuality, your sensuality, you're starting to explore, you're coming from this place of moving from that purity and innocence into exploration of who am I as a woman? What is my sexuality? I'm stepping into this place as a woman with my menses. And, there are other ways in which we can think about stepping into womanhood. If, you don't have a cycle or you didn't have a menses, there's other ways in which we can talk about stepping into womanhood and backing up into that maiden place. If that wasn't truly honored for you, or you didn't feel like you were able to really hold the full possibility of your sexuality and your sensuality. And as you do that, there's this, what I feel is really important, like this place of what we call the blood sister, right? So there's this need for us to really hold one another in that and empower one another in the possibility of exploring our sexuality and maybe losing our virginity, but really it's we're connecting with each other. I think a lot about women's circles when I think of blood sisters. So I talk about all three because, with the wheel, it's not fixed, it's not exact, and we transit, we traverse this wheel at any given point in our life. So in some ways it's chronological, and someone at age 45 who is really stepping into exploration of her sexuality for the first time in her life, maybe moving into that maiden place and that place of innocence and purity. Yeah, so I think again, it's important to name that it can be chronological, and particularly if it wasn't honored, we might find ourselves wanting to revisit that place at any point in our life. Yeah, and it's not fixed too. Well, then I go from daughter to maiden to blood sister, and one kind of informs the other. So yeah, I think that's probably enough said. So we'll move on to the next phase.
Thank you, Kylie. So moving into the summer, what I see in the summer is the beginning of where you really start to relate with the other. And I'll share some personal experiences of the archetypes. The first one being the lover. And this one really is not just about sex and love. It's about finding this balance between the inner masculine and feminine within ourselves. Oftentimes, I could speak for myself in that I didn't really have great mentors and lover in the lover phase, but I moved into it very quickly. Possibly skipping maiden even personally, and then became pregnant at 18. I have 3 children, so I moved really quickly into the mother phase, and I'm 21 years later still in it. So yeah, I will kind of reflect what Callie said, in that it doesn't work chronologically. Like I'll never stop being a mother. That archetype is deeply in me, and have, that has definitely been a big part of my life and the fullness of my life, and very much in this quadrant, you're in the nurturing archetype. So a lot of it is about caretaking. And I would say the challenge in that is, not losing yourself, not falling into codependent tendencies to really, be able to distinguish and hold your own power. The South is very action oriented, a lot about standing in your power and right action. And then the next one is the midwife, and the midwife is really like a wise mother, is how I see it. And much of my career, I can also really relate with this archetype, and that being a body worker and holding, somatic therapy space, and just holding that sacred witness. I think of the sacred witness a lot when I think of the midwife. It's about being a guide and really walking the way that you want to be in the world, and setting that example for, the younger ones, maybe in the East still. But again, it's not chronological. So the midwife is about bringing life into this space. And it doesn't, even within the mother and the midwife, I'll speak into this because I can't relate to this, but I'm sure many people can, that, when you're mothering, you're nurturing something. It doesn't have to be, just a child. It can be a creative endeavor. Creativity is very South oriented, and the same with the midwife. You think of midwives as bringing new life into the world, and this can be physical, or it can be spiritual, or many different forms that it shows up in the midwife. I think I feel complete.
Thank you, Tree.
Yeah.
So we're moving from the south to the west into the autumn, and in this scheme, in this map of archetypes, into what's called the matriarch. So many of you may be familiar with the more traditional, from the Western, certainly the European Western traditions, of the triple goddess, which is really maiden, mother, and crone, which is all that I had heard of for a long time, and struggling to find myself in those. I was like, that doesn't work. I'm not a mother. I chose not to be a mother, and it's been a while since I could call myself a maiden. So I was struggling to find myself in there, and then I came across this particular map and was like, oh yes, this is what it is. This is what happens in the West after all that mothering and that busyness, and then the midwife leads you through when you're starting to guide others and help others into the matriarch. So the matriarch in the cardinal direction there in the West is the leader, the clan leader. She is the one who is making everything happen, maybe behind the scenes, but is bringing all this together, is harvesting the wisdom that she has gained and the power that she has gained over her life, and all the struggles and the turmoil that she's been through, to now be able to really direct that creative energy and really create things at a not just a family level, but at a society level. She's the one who's bringing big projects into the world, and is in that time of the West, both harvesting what has happened in her life and reaping the rewards and the fruit of that, but also that reckoning, going back and looking at those crops that did fail, and what didn't work, and what are the things that need cleaning up. So it is a time also of reflecting, like that autumn that I was talking about. The grief and the gratitude are part of this, of going back and really taking stock as you start to, at this stage in life, start to look towards the north and see that cronehood coming. I'm like, okay, what needs to be cleaned up here, so I can really step into that elder position with integrity. And I'll talk more about my personal story with this particular part of the wheel in a little bit. But the three archetypes that are here, the matriarchs here in the middle, and to the southwest of that is what is the Amazon, which I'll talk about more. And then heading a bit more north is the priestess. So we'll get into those in a little bit, but I will hand it over to our elder here in the north.
So as the elder sitting in the north, I was given permission to read a poem that I thought really exemplified the place of crone that sits in north. And if you are sensitive to any four-letter words, there are a few that I will utter in this poem. So just a little like an NPR warning there. The author is Maya Luna. If you want to be a badass, sexually empowered woman, embrace your inner hag. That's right, the crone, the ancient old woman, the witch, the hag. The crone archetype is an aspect of the feminine not exactly associated with sexuality. Women groom themselves to be girls, the younger, the better. Paint those lips red and blush those cheeks like you're wet and ripe for impregnation. Make them believe you are in perpetual ovulation. Make them hard, make them desire you. Get that facelift, suck in that belly, bat those lashes. Guess what? The crone doesn't give a fuck. And that is her power. She embraces her spider lines and swinging sagginess. After all, this is what life does to the body of a woman eventually. Does that make you uncomfortable? Would you rather not see? Her secret threatens to corrupt you. She can make you wild. She can reveal to you your power, your volcanic, senseless holy. Once she opens her mouth, the jig is up. They tell you she's crazy. Dangerous because she's broken out of that cell you call restrictions. How would you have sex if you didn't give a fuck about how pretty you looked or how flat your stomach is? The crone is not an object of desire. She is free to claim her own desire in a world that praises women for being objects of desire. Where the more lust you can seduce, the more value you possess. The crone is laughing with the cackle that only women of power have. She does not possess the enchanting beauty of the maiden or the fertile reproductive juices of the mother. She no longer bleeds. She no longer bears children. Her sex no longer waxes and wanes with the moon, gaining and draining energy with each passing tide. She is full. The portal to her blood has been sealed. She is drinking in the nectar. She is bathing in its luminous darkness. Her sex is a diamond pressed and polished by years of experience and wisdom. She has passed through the phases of initiation as a woman, that heavy web of social conditions all feminine creatures are baptized into. She is unraveling herself from these webs. She has liberated her sex from all their stories. She is making it to the other side, freeing herself. And again, the author was Maya Luna. So crone sits in the north, and to one side is sorceress, and to the other side is the dark mother. And at this point, I'm going to just tell you a little bit about where I see myself on the wheel. So we're going to go into some personal stories, and we're going to start here in the north. So over the past 7 years, it's what I call it could be called many things. It could be my midlife unraveling, my midlife awakening. I've shown up to myself in a way I've never shown up to myself before. And I've traveled the wheel from matriarch to priestess, and now stepping into sorceress with crone right on the threshold in front of me. My personal story is 7 years ago. I woke up in a 25-year marriage to discover that I did not know who I was anymore. There was loneliness deep within me, a longing for connection that I didn't have in my marriage. There was concern about my kids. There was addiction and behaviors going on in the family system. And that's the unraveling part. But what it set me into is, we haven't touched on it, but in the center of the wheel is the transformer, that in order to progress along each stage, it's the place that is the center. It's the place that can't be named, the source, the place of life and death. And so I went into the transformer for a period of time, and uncovered a lot about myself that I had either buried deep or long forgotten. And I had some sexual trauma from early childhood come to me as a remembering during this period of time. And also began to step outside the story that I believe I let others write for me. And this is where I believe I was really to the right of the matriarch in the priestess and sorceress stages. I began to shed the old skins, shed the old ways of loving, shed the old ways of limiting myself, and began to really embody more deeply the wisdom that I had, and the courage to show up in a way that I had not allowed myself to show up in my life. I don't know if I want to say ever, but it kind of feels like that. So that is my personal story with my progress in the wheel. I'm sitting in the crone place for this group, and am in the neighborhood of the wisdom, but I haven't fully embraced it. Chronologically, I am menopausal, maybe postmenopausal, but the jury's still out on that. So in terms of my blood right, that's where I lay chronologically. And I dance around the wheel a lot. So that's me. Thanks.
Thank you, Bea. Yeah, so thinking about just sharing a bit about our own personal stories, and where I'm sitting on the wheel right now is in this place of lover, and developing a new relationship, and balancing the masculine and feminine within me, and how that is projected outwards in my life. And so that's where I'm at in this moment. But what I feel is it's really more helpful for me to start also 7 years ago, where I stepped into this work, or started stepping into this work, and found myself actually at the place of dark mother, which for me was being at death's door, and reckoning with my own death and the possibility of my own death through my own addictions, and recognizing that in order to live, I needed to make a different choice, and stepping into, as Bea mentioned, that place of transformer for some time, which can be seen as this place of the in-between, the void, the possibility, kind of that place of churning and assisting us in moving into a new archetype or a new phase. And so went into that place of transformer for some time, and then was able to come out of that, and really for the first time sit with and honor the maiden. And even in conversation today, I was talking about my own relationship with the maiden within me, and even my hesitancy to claim that part of me, the innocent, the purity. There's this old story that I have had for a long time around her as the innocent equaling the fool, or stupidity, or this place that was shut down in me from an early age. And so coming out of the transformer, giving myself permission to really explore the daughter, the maiden, the blood sister, and honor her in a way that I hadn't done before, and still working that edge, right? It came up today, and just, oh yeah, there's still that tenderness around the innocent equating to and whatever conditioning and some trauma and, you know, society tells us about, yeah, that it wasn't okay for me. That was the story. And so having, you know, done a little bit of that and still working that a bit, for me, so much of the last few years have been about midwifing and just really holding space for other women, and guiding and mentoring. And also the blood sister place I'm recognizing has been a place for me, and just connecting with other women in circle and exploring that place of sexuality that when, you know, when I lost my virginity and when I was exploring sexuality, it was either, you know, and I'm going to use some crass language, but you're a whore or you're a virgin, and it was just limited to that. And so redefining that for myself through this connection to these blood sister circles, and also allowing myself to midwife other women stepping into that place. And so that's a bit of, yeah, kind of when I think about where I'm moving across the wheel, and yeah, that again, that place of transformer is so juicy and important to go back into. It's like when I think about the medicine wheel, it's going back into the center and connecting with source or connecting with spirit to get clear and to get information and to just have something that's bigger than me guiding me to the next space. Yeah. So I think I'm complete. I'll pass.
Thank you for sharing, Callie. So yeah, I did touch in on some of my personal story in presenting the South archetypes. They've been really alive for me, but if I were to, you know, go a little deeper, I could say, you know, daughter, you know, I'm sure all of us relate to. I do believe my maiden was not explored properly. So I could say, you know, I was definitely pulled into the transformer, experiencing a good amount of trauma and death of my mother and teenagehood. And then honestly, when I think of blood sisters personally, it kind of takes me back to my childhood where I maybe just had very close friends. And that's what I can relate blood sisters to. So some of that, I'm sure I will be fed through our group even. I currently see myself really in Amazon. And I say that mainly because I'm really focused on myself more in life now as my kids are older. You know, I did, like I touched on the 3 archetypes and spent 21 years really solidly in those, the lover, mother, and midwife archetypes, and really see myself stepping into Amazon more and more. Also on the brink of matriarch, as I will be a grandmother pretty soon. My daughter is giving birth at maybe December or January. So I find myself in this predicament where I'm the mother and the matriarch at the same time. And that's kind of it's blowing my mind a little bit to hold both of those archetypes. And exploring this wheel has really opened my awareness to just how much we all can hold, and how this idea of the transformer in the center, this void space, how it, you know, can pull us in and shoot us out somewhere unknown. So yeah, I guess that's what I'll share of my story, and thank you.
Thank you, Tree. So moving around from the south up to the west, this matriarch place. I'm share a little bit of my story. I'm not going to go all the way back to daughter. I'm just going to share the last few years and start at the Amazon. That's where you left off, Tree. And around about 40, I was right there. I was right in that phase. So the Amazon is a place where we tend to go a little wild after all that mothering, which for me was mothering a business, not children, but it was a huge amount of work nonetheless. And after I was able to separate myself a little bit from that, moved into my Amazon phase, which is, going a little bit wild, balancing the masculine and the feminine. So at that point, I was in a relationship with both a woman and a man together. And we were like, everything. We were doing everything we could we could get our hands on, including going up to Standing Rock and coming home and creating a nonprofit to stand up for renewable energy and the rights of nature here in Asheville. So the Amazon, and it's classic Amazon. It's all about questioning the status quo, pushing against that ceiling, especially as women living in a patriarchal society, pushing against the constraints and the limits that we kind of wake up to at this part in our life, and balancing that masculine and feminine. So I was deep in my Amazon when my male partner Tyler was killed suddenly in a motorcycle accident. So that shot me straight into that transformer, which I think we all touched on there. It was just right into that void. Completely everything just went upside down in my life, and had a lot of support, my blood sisters, which I'm very grateful for. But nonetheless, I was spinning around in there for a while. And what pulled me out, sort of when I ejected out of that, and it was through rites of passage work. It was through really nature-based, deep nature connection that pulled me out of the transformer, and I found myself in what I now recognize as priestess. So I sort of skipped over this phase and went to priestess, which is really about the descent. It's the classic dark night of the soul, the descent, that going inward, moving away from the material concerns of the world and going deeply inward and moving much more into the spiritual side of things. So that's what enabled me to come out of the transformer and really deeply explore this work, this rites of passage work, and this soul tending work that has become my work over the past few years. And then as that settled and the grief kind of released its grip, such a tight grip on me, I was able to settle back into matriarch, which is a bit more chronologically where I am, and made some huge changes in my business and the way that I was engaged in that, that enabled me to really reap the fruits of all that work that I had put in previously, so that now I'm ready to step back into priestess, but in a much more conscious and intentional way, that I'm choosing that rather than I just got shut out there from the transformer. So that's the brief version. Obviously, that's a much longer story, and all of our stories are much longer than that. That's the brief version. And we share this with you as a way to illustrate some of the archetypes, but also as a way for you to get to know some of us, a little bit about each of us. So if you're considering working with us for the Seasons of Womanhood program, you can get a better sense of who we are and our journeys and what's brought us to this work. And we want to open up space in a couple of minutes for each of us to be able to dive a little deeper. And obviously we've been working with these archetypes for a few months, and this may be brand new to each of you or some of you right now. So we're not looking for you to create a whole story put together around which archetypes are relevant, but breaking out into groups so that we can just start to like ask the questions. And we do actually have some questions which I'll post in the chat. But before we do that, we're gonna just like move our bodies for a moment. I'm aware that hearing those stories may have brought things up for each of you, things that maybe you resonate with or started to question for yourselves. So let's just move that around in our bodies. Let it be there, but let's move it around so we don't get stuck. And then when we come back, we're gonna just a couple of minutes. Tree's gonna play us some music, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about breaking up into groups. Tree, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, if everyone wants to stand up and make some space for yourself, shake off any residual and go in.
Tree, I can't hear the music. Did you?
Oh, you can't? Interesting. Okay, hold on. Oh. Okay, take two.
All right, Tree, let's bring it back. Thank you, Tree. I hope you all got to shake it out a little bit, or you got to pee, or whatever it was that most needed to happen for you. All right, so we're gonna, as I said, we're gonna break up into groups in just a moment. I am trying to find my little notes here. So before we go into groups, I just want to reiterate our agreements, especially the one around sacred witness. We're not here to give advice, fix anybody, change anybody. We're just here to listen and hold with compassion and confidentiality. And remember, there's no right or wrong answers. Jules, I'm glad the dancing felt good. I enjoyed it too. So we've got 4 breakout rooms around the 4 cardinal archetypes. So maiden, mother, matriarch, crone. And Zoom is going to pop up a little thing in a minute, which will ask you to choose which room you want to go into. And you can make that decision whatever way you want. The invitation is to choose the room of the archetype that is most calling your attention. So that may not seem like it's chronologically appropriate. It doesn't matter. There's no appropriate, right? So if you're in your 70s, but you feel like your daughter is waving and being like, hey, I need some attention, then go to the maiden room. Similarly, if you're in your 20s, but there's something about the mother archetype that's really calling you, then go there. And so it's not about how old you are or which blood rites you have or have not been through. It's about what is calling your attention right now. So just trust that, whichever archetype you want to explore. And we wrote some questions, which I'm going to post in the chat. And then one of the four of us will be in whichever room you choose. So we'll have these questions as well, but let me post them in here. And these are invitations, right? So why did you choose this group? Why are you here in this group? What appealed to you? Which archetypes are you embodying at this point in your life? Which archetypes are underexpressed in your life or have been historically underexpressed? If you want to talk about blood rites, which blood rites were not marked or honored in your life? So these are all invitations. You don't have to go through and answer these questions. This is just a way to get us started. Okay, any questions before we scatter out into breakout rooms, which will be about 10 minutes, and then we'll come back. You can just unmute yourself and just let me know if you've got a question.
Grace
Okay.
posed a question in the chat regarding the questions. We haven't talked much about the various blood rites and what they are.
That's true, and we're not going to have time.
Yeah, I know those were written about, but yeah.
Yeah, they are written about. There is one of the articles which has been sent out or will be sent out, depending where you are in that flow, talks more about the blood rites, but we're not going to have time to get into that in this session, but it will be part of the 6-week session that we do. So I'm going to open up the breakout rooms. You can choose one. And if you really just do not want to go into a room and discuss any of this with other people, that's totally fine. You can just stay here. None of us will be here. None of the guides will be here, but you can stay here. And then we'll all come back in about 10 minutes. And that's totally fine. Oh yeah, I see someone's got a hand over there. Pearl?
Yeah. Kat, are you able to just briefly touch on the Sorceress and Dark Mother before we go into the rooms? I feel like I didn't hear as much about them and don't really know what they are.
Yes.
Fully.
In the interest of time, I'm not going to do that, but you will get an email that lists them all out and gives you much more detail about them.
Okay.
And if that's where you're wanting to go, you can head into the throne room right now.
Yeah, they sit on either side of the crone. And if that's like where your curiosity is peaking, we can talk more about that when we get in there if you want. I'll be in that room.
All right. Do you all see a way to choose your room?
No,
I don't either.
Maybe you might have to click the breakout room thing. There's a little like 4 squares at the bottom right there. Oh yeah, people are starting.
Oh, I see.
Okay, great.
We don't have to click on that, right, Kat? We'll just.
I think you will have to select in, yeah.
Okay.
The crone list is growing.
It is.
The breakout room went away.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, you should be able, Nita, you should be able to click at the bottom. There's a little thing that says breakout rooms. It's like 4 squares.
Yeah, I saw it.
Good to see you. Let's see, 11. Let's see. Hello, hello.
Oh, hi.
So I'm gonna assume that we're a small group. So that's great. That gives us more time to explore the archetypes. Is there anyone with a burning desire to share what's calling you to this room? Maybe in particular, one of the archetypes. And also just, yeah, reiterate that, everything that's shared here is in confidentiality. It won't be repeated. There's no right or wrong. It's really just exploring.
We have puppies that are playing,
Sorry.
and so it might be loud when we talk, but we're gonna stay on mute most of the time.
Okay.
But we'll unmute when, we have something to share.
Okay, wonderful. Doggies
will
don't
be
bother me.
loud.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll just start by saying my name. Tree, or Teresa is my birth name. If everyone would like to share their names, that would be lovely, just to hear voices.
Hello, I'm Amanda.
Hi.
Good to meet you all. Hi, Tree.
I'm Cater.
I'm Laura.
Okay. Wonderful. Welcome.
Rose.
Hi, Rose.
Hey.
Allison, are you there? Okay. So please tell me what has brought you here. Is there a question or a calling in any archetype in particular? Or maybe one that you're embodying currently that is really clear? I've said enough about myself. I want to hear about y'all.
We both connected with the lover archetype.
Mm-hmm. Tell me more. Tell me more about the connection there.
Yeah, I'm, currently working on cultivating discernment and clarity, and exploring, my creative efforts. Sorry, we have puppies and they're excitable. They're probably lower on the list of maybe daughter archetypes right now.
Wonderful. What about you, Laura? What archetype are you? You're also being called to the lover archetype?
I am, yeah. I will say too that this is kind of my first foray into rites of passage. So reading all of this was new for me. I just connected with that because that's where I feel like I am in my life right now.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
So, yeah, I feel connected to a bunch of these, but I decided to join the mother, the lover. It feels most relevant right now. I'm in a new relationship right now and just learning again what I need in love and kind of how to mother myself through it and stay sovereign and not lose myself in any way. And yeah, I feel like it's just been a while since I've been in a relationship in this type of dynamic. So I guess that feels most relevant, but I definitely feel myself connecting to many of these different archetypes. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Well, the matriarch and the crones were just like so big. I thought, well, okay. because I was really interested in Amazon, actually. I became a mother in the Amazon period of that wheel. And so then I thought, well, mothering is always a good subject. And I like the idea of midwifing. I feel like there's some of that energy going on for me, and has been for a long time. Yeah. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you, Rose. Allison, I just have to ask if you're there because I'd like to give you an opportunity to share.
Hi, I'm here. I'm sick today, so I'm just laying down and listening.
Okay. Is
Thank
there,
you.
yeah, so we'll just kind of go over the other, yeah, questions. What archetypes are underexpressed in your life? That's a good question. And it doesn't obviously have to be in this quadrant. Feel inclined to talk about any of them. And I shared my personal, I think maiden got skipped over for me, and I'm not quite crone, although I could say, I have an ancient kind of deep wisdom way about me, and I think in that way I could relate to crone. And certainly the dark mother, actually Callie's share kind of brought me to that realization of a time in my life where I did envision my death, and I was in a really dark place, and it's actually part of what brought me here to the mountains as I started my spiritual path. So yeah, anybody else feel like there's some that they've skipped or haven't had opportune for?
I think I just have like a logistical question. Y'all started at 7, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Facebook said y'all started at 8.
Oh, maybe it was the time.
We missed like the first hour, and I was like, I'm feeling a little confused about this whole thing.
Oh, okay. That makes sense now. So you haven't heard the whole first hour.
I have, yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, it's better now.
Some clarity there. Okay.
Yeah, me too. Okay. I'm like, man, I'm just like I'm having a hard time like dropping in. This feels like a little odd for me. Yeah.
So if I can figure out, I'm not as super familiar with Zoom as Kat is, but I know that do you have the book? Have you purchased the book by chance?
No, I've read the Rites. Okay.
So it's based on the 13 archetypes of a womanhood. So it's the cycles that we go through as women.
Yeah, we were like, oh, it starts at 7. And then there was a change on Facebook that said it updated it to 8. And we're like, so we just here for like an hour waiting on it to stop.
Yes. Oh, I'm so sorry that happened.
Okay.
I wonder who else that may have happened to. Okay. Well, we are doing it 2 more times, so please.
We'll just tag along, and we might not share a lot. So okay. We're like willing to listen, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
Well, I'll talk a little bit about the different areas. I feel I'm definitely in the going from the priestess into the crone area in terms of my age, and also in terms of my spiritual path, I think. But I definitely the whole maiden thing for me was really messed up. It was yeah, I was a lesbian, and I didn't know what that was, and really felt that something was wrong with me, and I think that's kind of a common thing for teenagers anyway, but And I remember around 16, really looking in the mirror and going, wow, something is really wrong and you need to get this together. Because I had no idea. I mean, all my friends were basically googly eyed around boys, you know, and I was like, I don't get it. I just don't get it. I want to ride their motorcycles, you know, I want to play games, you know, and stuff. But anyway, yeah, so that's kind of an area that I didn't get to, that was different for me.
Thank you for sharing that, Rose.
Yeah.
We have about 40 seconds left. Amanda, if you could speak to one that maybe you haven't experienced or you felt, yeah, out of tune with.
What am I going to say in 30 seconds? Yeah. Sorry, the time thing is.
Yeah, no pressure.
Yeah, I'm sure I can speak to some definite skipped steps in the maiden. I think it's just part of culture that most of us.
Welcome back. Welcome back, matriarchs. I apologize. I didn't realize that I wasn't able to leave and go into a room. I was planning on being with you, but I figured 11 matriarchs that they would figure it out. I had no worries about that. So welcome back, everybody. I know it wasn't much time, but that's. I hope something happened. I'm sure it did, and I would love to hear from some other people that haven't spoken yet. I'd love to hear a little report back on and either something that you gained from the first part as the four of us were talking, or something that you learned or gained from the breakout session there. Again, obviously respecting other people's privacy. You're not talking about other people's stories, but just something that feels resonant for you, something that is standing out for you. So please feel free to just unmute yourselves and just jump in. Let me know what you're learning, what you're hearing. We'll have time for questions in a little bit too.
I think what I've learned is that I have a lot more to learn. I want to learn about all of the archetypes, because I think that it's true that we are chronologically in a place, but our life experience might really put us in a different place. And to really honor those places that we haven't been able to honor in our culture and in our life experience. So I think there's really a lot more to explore.
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn.
I thought it was interesting that in listening to the workshop leaders, that there seemed to be like a 7-year, the beginning of a period of spiritual whatever 7 years ago. And I had the same thing. 7 years ago, I had a complete kind of Saturn return experience. And so that was just kind of interesting to me, that I wonder if there are other people in the group who had that same timing, something that sort of, I think that was also around 2012, which is the Mayan, turning. So that's a very interesting thing to me, that piece of, we're in that time now.
Yeah.
Share that time. Yeah.
Thank you, Rose. Yeah, I see some things in the chat. People are resonating with that. What else? If you want to share the archetype, Jules, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I read everything that I could before this Zoom call, and then just talking through this, and I just feel like it makes so much sense. I'm really excited to learn more and see more about it, because I feel like, oh my gosh, like the things I'm feeling and the phases I'm going through have like some purpose and meaning to it. So I'm really excited to learn more.
Thank you.
I found these really resonated with me. What struck me in the conversation was I was surprised with the number of people who talked about how they had been robbed of certain experiences at various points in their life because of something traumatic. And this really gives a language for that as well. It was helpful to me.
Yeah. Thank you, Tina.
This is Joan.
Yeah.
I wonder if we don't go through, I don't know where I am here. Sorry, I'm so blurry. I wonder whether we don't go, since I was not a parent, but I did do matriarchal, what I considered somewhat with children. But I wonder whether we don't go through these archetypes, maybe not just one time. I wonder if we can't recycle, and through some of the transformation kinds of things that we we may be working on, if that doesn't allow, it's not a reliving of the experience of the stage, but it's sort of maybe a reformulation of that particular stage that wasn't fulfilled or actualized in the way that maybe we would want it to be.
Absolutely, Joan. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think that's really important. Oh, there you are, Joan.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we spin around, although you can see a developmental flow to these things as you go around the wheel. As our personal stories, each of the four of us indicate, we're jumping around, often going through that transformer. And then what this work is about is really going back, mostly back. I guess you could go forward in time, but I think mostly going back and looking at which of these phases really weren't honored or were taken from me in some way, or I had to move through very quickly, or there was a lot of wounding in that phase, so that we can go back and bring those archetypes into more balanced expression within each of us, because each of these archetypes are within all of us, no matter what age we are and no matter our experience. They're all within all of us, as are a bunch of other archetypes that aren't even on this map, but we're just focusing on these ones. So they're all in us, and the intention of this 6-week course that we're launching in February is to help us, each of us, to understand these different archetypes and be able to bring them into more balance. So yeah, there may be in a certain part of life where one or more of them is more dominant in our life right now, but that doesn't mean there aren't old wounds and old things from previous phases and archetypes that we can honor ceremonially, or we can do ritual around to bring more healing to that particular archetype. So the Seasons of Womanhood, that's the intent of this program, is to spend the first 6 weeks, so this will start in February through middle of March, online like this, going through these archetypes. So we'll be able to spend a week on each of the cardinal, each of the 4 sections, so we'll do 3 a week, and really get to grips with each of them and how each one is expressed in our own lives personally. And then at the end of that, we can co-create together rituals that either you can go on and do it at home with your own circle of women or alone, or you can bring into the next phase of the program. But the rituals will be around honoring those either blood rights that haven't been honored, or honoring previous archetypes that weren't allowed to be fully expressed for whatever reason. And they also might be around claiming a transition. So if you're aware you're sort of on the cusp of one archetype and leading into the next, but you need more support to get into the next to really claim it, then we could be creating rituals around that. There's lots of opportunities for how to bring, firstly, understand these archetypes in our minds, but then bring them into our bodies and bring them into our lives through ritual and ceremony. So the first 6 weeks of this program, we'll be doing this online and looking more deeply at the archetypes. And then in May, we're going to do the ritual immersion. It's a 5-day immersion here in the Blue Ridge Mountains, where we will build on the work that we've done in the archetype series and co-create those rituals and hold them together, so that if you've got a ritual, everyone will have one, that you're using to mark something or to honor something from the past, to heal something from the past, to claim something you're stepping into, whatever it is, you'll be able to do that with a circle of women. And we will, the 4 of us will help you create that and hold that and implement that and bring that into reality, so you can mark your transitions in a more conscious and intentional way. And so that happens in May. And then in the end of September, we will have a few spaces open for a prayer fast, which is a much deeper exploration. So this will be a 9-day program, 4 days and 4 nights of that. You will be solo in the forest, fasting, really taking a deep dive into contemplating whichever of these archetypes are speaking to you and which ones you really want to honor and claim and step into in your life. So there's a progression to this program, and you can do just the first part, just the archetypes online if you want, and end there. Or you can do the archetypes and then come and do the ritual immersion in May and then end there. Or you can do all 3. Well, a limited number will be able to do all 3. We're limited to 20 people for the prayer fast. So that's a very quick overview of the 9-month program. I'm going to paste the web page in here so you can click on that and bring it up. So all the information, all the details are in there. And I'd love to open it up now for if you've got questions, either about the program, about anything that we presented tonight, or there's still something from the breakout room that you wanted to share that you didn't get a chance to share. I'd love to hear any of those things.
Victoria had a question in the chat.
Thank you.
I'm very interested in what it looks like and what it feels like to balance feminine and masculine energies. It seems like it is such an important balancing that all of us can contribute to. Do you go into this?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so some of the archetypes, like the Amazon specifically, is really focused on that. And there's also other archetypes that aren't on this map that tend to be more male focused. And the reason that we wanted to dive into these female archetypes is because they are less well known and less acknowledged in this world we live in. So we really wanted to focus on the feminine archetypes. But yes, ultimately the goal is to be balancing both the feminine and the masculine within us. So that's not going to be, it will be a part of the archetypes series, especially when we talk about the Amazon. And when we move into the ritual immersion, the 5-day program, that definitely we can create rituals around that. That would be actually, I think, a really important piece that we need to bring in. What else? Other questions or thoughts, comments, reflections?
Do you see an issue if we know we'll have difficulty making at least one of the meetings? Will that?
No, we'll record them all. So you'll get the links to the recording. Obviously the breakout times are not recorded, but everything else will be on the recording.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's also other supporting materials around it as well. So you'll be able to read more about the archetypes as we go through, and there'll be various different recordings we've made and stories and things to help support you really getting to grips with each of the archetypes, so you can really start to understand them, reflect on them, and bring them into your own lives in different ways. Bee Tree, Callie, is there anything you want to add?
I'm just seeing a question here in the chat from Jules about, is it 6 weeks leading up to the May Circle Zoom format? And yes.
Yes, it is. Yeah, so 6 weeks, February 1st through March 15th or so, is every week, every Tuesday at this time, 7 Eastern. for 6 weeks, and then there's a little break, and then I think May 11th till 15th is the ritual immersion, and that's in person on land here in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Right, it seems like we have come to a close, unless there's anyone else got a question or a comment. Beautiful. Tree, would you want to try your audio skills again and see if you can play us a song as we're
Sure.
leaving?
Yes, I can do that. I didn't know I had to keep, telling it, I want to share. I want to share.
There you go. Yeah, it says here. All right, so Tree's going to play us this song, and feel free to just wave and dip out as you need to. And all of our contact information is on that page. You can get in touch with us. Oh, Grace has a question.
Sorry for my belatedness. My question is, what's the advantage of, doing this Zoom series and onward instead of just getting this book from the library and taking a look at it ourselves?
You can totally do that, to get the book from the library. The advantage is being able to discuss it with each other, be able to be in community and to hear other people's personal stories and reflections.
Yeah, the sisterhood will take the material to a whole nother level. Like the four of us have already experienced that between us in terms of what we've done with the book so far. So yeah.
Yeah, good question. All right, Tree, I think it's you.
Okay.
So yeah, be in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. I will send the recording out so you'll have it. And if you haven't gotten the email series that links you to the 3 different articles, you will get it. It'll start tomorrow because you're now on the list because you're here. So you'll have my email and can be in touch. All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's really lovely to see everyone.
It's a beautiful song if you want to stay.
We keep by the ones who circle round to tend these fires.
You can hear it, yeah?
We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.